In this video, we are learning to CPU cooling system. There are two parts basically to cool the CPU. Is first one is the air cooling system, second one is the liquid cooling system. Air cooling system is look like in this. In this particular cooling system, we are used to air to cool down the system. Heat sinks heat sinks are the needed when the heat transfer to the ambient air directly from the top of the device is not sufficient to keep the semiconductor device within the allowable temperature range. Heatsink was supplying the higher power applications, increase the thermal conductance of the component and increasing the fin area exposed to the airflow is very important. Which means that whenever we are using the semiconductor is a CPU or a GPU, any kind of thing we are putting this kind of heat sinks to giving them a gap and airflow is basically going very highly. So CPU is going to much heater, so it have to cool down the CPU with the help of air. Thermal interface material, we are using some kind of thermal materials, interface materials, so we can use that. Also cool down the system. The TME is essential when two or more solid surfaces are in the heat path. Whenever we are cooling the any air with help of air, we need to the essential solid surfaces. At that time, we need to be thermal interface materials. The air gaps created by the multiple voids of the contacting hard surfaces are simply too large a thermal barrier for a even modest power application. The first tactic in overcoming this barrier is to fit the void and eliminate the air, introducing the third material to the heat path, that is fluid and wastes the surfaces. An important property of the NETM is the thermal conductivity. Grease and electrometric pads are used as a team. Cooling fans and blowers. First of all, cooling fans and blowers are the essential to systems that produce the significant amount to the heat like a computer and other electronic component. Different systems are engineering to work with the specific type of fans. Cooling fans come in the all shapes and size as well as the voltage air and kg size. Okay. Difference between the fans and blower. Basically, axial fans are look like this. They create a airflow for the parallel to the axis of the fan blade, designed to the work within a system that low back air pressure and high rate airflow, less noise, quite common and most economical cooling solution. They are normally used in computers. It's a very commonly used, but it's not a that much efficient like a blower. Blower is more efficient than the fans. Blowers are the send the air on the perpendicular direction in the radiation to its axis, designed to work within systems that have a high impedance and low rate of airflow. It produces a more compressed air in a system, so they tend to generate a significant amount of noise. They are used in servers. Basically, the servers are a big CPU and GPUs, so they are getting a more heat. They are work for 24 hour, 24 by 7. So in that case, they want to cool down the is a cheaper usage as a blower. Uh, AC cooling fans and DC cooling fans are the two are basically fans are available in the market. There are some differences between them. The voltages are the DC fan of 5 watt, 12 watt, 24 watt. AC fan has a 20, 110 and 20 to 20 watt frequency. And DC fan has a no frequency because DC current has a no frequency. But AC has a 50 to 60 in India. In US they are different. Airflow speed is a variable. The airflow AC is a constant. Power consumer is a low, 60% lesser. AC conductor there are a lot of power consuming. Electronic magnetic radio frequency interfaces is a low level. In AC fan is a higher level. Life is a in DC fan is a longer, but AC fan is a shorter life. The difference in the cost between the AC fan and DC fan is negligible. It's almost same of cost. When choosing a fan for your applications, it is important to look a cooling requirement of your system and applications, the fan type, the airflow, AC or DC power operations. AC fan are used when the DC voltage is not available on all type of computer equipment, rarely on DC cooling fan. Basically, if you are using a gaming PC or a video editing PC, then you need a more cooling power.
big blower unit. It's this kind of IBM servers they are using normally in the smaller amount of the data storing, and this kind of a big data storing servers. Cooling conditions, in this condition we are showing that a lot of this kind of cases is made for the servers. In these slots we are putting the hard disks and etc. So whenever they are making these kind of holes are the electrical fans or a blower. So whenever we are putting the hard disk CPUs and fully hard disk server, in this case they are getting the lot of airs in simultaneously, or a cooling system are making a different kind of cases as well as how is cooling system is basically the work airflow only for a in front rear out and front in top out. What happened when cool air is a conduct this eye to cooling the tunnel, supply air is giving this air is going to this way, or this is the server packaging, or they are going like this. So at that time CPU or a hard disk or a power supply if are hit, then they absorb the air absorb their electric array his heat and absorb the heat and then extract its here its area. In supply air, if it's a rear out then it's going to back, or is a top out then it's going up. Liquid cooling system, we are using the liquid to cool down the CPU. Why we need the liquid cooling system? Because we are know that water is a more absorb of energy than the air, and some kind of cases are big PCs are servers are not able to just cool down the using of the air. So at that time we are needing a water or a coolant or etc liquids or nitrogens and etc. What is a liquid cooling? Basically the liquid cooling is a matter of the heat removal from the electrical component. As opposed to the air cooling, water is used as a heat conductor. Advantage is what of the liquid air. Water has specifically heat capacity, density and thermal conductivity. This allow to water the transmit heat over the greater distance which much less volumetrical flow and reduction temperature difference. Drawing heat away from the processor and outside of the system. This allow for the higher clock speed in the processor as ambient temperature of the CPU core are still within the manufacturer specifications. Uh, the water jacket around an engine is also very efficient and deadening mechanical noises which makes the engine quieter. Many high-performance CPUs require fan speeds in excess of the 700 RPM that generation noise over the 60 plus decimal of noise. No dust and no need to open the computer to clean. Disadvantages of what of the disadvantages? Cost specifically more than the air coolant system, approx $600. Size and weight need a large area inside and out the computer requirement larger desktop system cases to fit all these parts within the computer case itself. Approx 6.56 kgs to weight is increasing if we want to fit this below. And the technical requirement to install the kit suitable tube length leak could causes the server damage to the component inside the system. If we are not properly fit adjust to fit the cooling system, then if the liquid is going to outside, then it's a spark or the short circuit in our PC and it's a damage over the PC. Leaking continuous due to the ambient air right around the plate being cold. Water freezes at the 0 degrees Celsius. Water cooling can be used to. What is the uses of the water cooling? Water cooling can be used to cool many computer components, especially the CPU, GPU, northern bridge, southern bridge, hard disk device, memory, voltage regulator module, power supply can be water cooled. Everything will be water cooled. This coolant contains the high quality anti-corrosion agent for the various material including the copper, aluminum and plastic that prevent the corrosion the long-term operations. Material will using propylene and anti-corrosion agents. Freezing point is a -9 degree. Exchanging cycle is a 1 year. Liquid versus air cooling system. What are the basically difference in the liquid system and air cooling system? The liquid cooling system is very high if terms of cost. In size, liquid cooling is a big, air cooling system is a small. Comparatively, specifically GPU are using for the liquid cooling system to cool down the GPUs. Air cooling system is of all kind of CPUs basically used in that case. Safety is a liquiding a less safety, air is a more safety because air is giving some air and there are never chance to be getting a spark in the air cooling system. Scale requirement is a yes, liquid cooling system you need a scale because the installation in air cooling system you don't need to work. There are basically cases hole in that inside the CPUs. You just put down your CPU or else you have a second option. The CPU is directly attached to your GPU and CPU, so you can directly attach the GPU or CPU to the fan. Some kind of cases the thermal CPU on the CPU we are using the thermal paste. Why we need the thermal paste or the paste for air cooling system properly? In air cooling system we are using thermal paste because the thermal paste is giving to the heat absorber. In CPU there are a lot of small holes are on the CPU. We can't see in with our eyes. At that thermal paste is what I can do. They absorb the heat and passes to the air cooling system, and air cooling system is cool down the thermal paste. So basically it's give a more and more efficiency with our system. Efficiency is a high and air is a moderated, spread is a low and air is a high spread. Thank you. In why in real life we are using some kind of a cooling system. So in which scenario we need water cooling, in which scenario we need air. If we are using some basic programming in the laptop or the PC, then we are our air cooling system is basically good for us. But we are talking about the very big servers like a Facebook servers or a Google servers or Amazon servers at that time, or you have a big budget and you are a pro level gamer. So in that scenario you can use a water cooling system or the coolant system. uh, Basically what are the advantages of the water coolant? If you are going to overclock your CPU, if your CPU has 8 gigahertz of the or 9 gigahertz, at that time water cooling system is based for the uses, because water cooling system is what are the basically they can do. A water cooling system is work like that they are you are feeding the pipeline in your CPU, CPU, RAM, hard drive, whatever component you are getting a heat. They are all component is connected to one tube pipeline. One pump is there, and we are filling to the fully one radiator at there. When we are starting, the pump is getting the pushing the air or pushing the water or the coolant in the tubes. They are getting to the tube where water is supplying. At that time they absorb the heat in the CPUs and the coolant is going to the radiator. At radiator there are lot of thick radiators are there, so in radiator they are using the fan or any kind of thing to cool down them. They are cooled down at that time, and after that they are using against the storage tube, and the pump is again continuously simultaneously work that a cycle. At that cycle the CPU is getting very lessly and cool. Thank you for the attendance.